for coming out. We have a nice room tonight. So if I say something that doesn't make any sense, go like this and I'll explain it some more. Because this is actually pretty simple. But it's really practical and it can change your life. I was a vegetarian. At age 13, I was a Boy Scout. And I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. And one of the things that we were supposed to do as part of the Boy Scout troop was go take a tour of Oscar Mayer meatpacking plant, which was headquartered in Madison, Wisconsin. And they took us to the meatpacking plant, and I saw what happened there to the animals, and I decided I was going to become a vegetarian. I was a vegetarian from then until about probably 6 or 7 years ago. I was doing triathlons, and I did well, but I broke down. And I couldn't understand it. And I met Lauren Cordain, who is the sort of the father of the Paleo movement. Wrote the original books, not the original books, but the modern day books on the Paleo movement. And what he wrote made a lot of sense to me. I saw him at a lecture, at a medical lecture, and then I read his book, and I thought, I'm going to try it out and see if that helps me or see if that makes any sense. I want to kind of take you through where does this come from? Because when I explain it to patients, it makes a lot of sense. I put every patient on pretty much a paleo diet. And I find that if you'll give this a month, it will change your metabolism, you will become leaner, your inflammatory problems, if you have joint pains or an autoimmune type condition, they will start to get better. Because this is the diet that the human body has been used to for a long time. And so, the way it starts is that... Can you close the door, please? There is no door.
It is shut as far as I can do. Firewall, I have to have one door open.
Okay, good. Can you hear me? Okay. Now, the first human fossils found on planet Earth go back to about when? About 2.5 million years ago. Now, that civilization at that time was what was called in archaeology or in anthropology, this period is called Paleolithic. In Greek, paleo means old. Lithic means stone. So Paleolithic was old stone. Now they called it stone because the weapons and the tools that those people utilized were stone. They were splints and things like that for arrowheads or spears or tomahawks or whatever they were using at the time. And these people had a civilization that was clannish. 30, 40 people, extended family, and they're known as hunter-gatherers. Now what does a hunter-gatherer do? They hunt and they gather, as opposed to farm. So they weren't sedentary, they roamed around. So if we were in Florida 2.5 million years ago, and we were Paleolithic cavemen and women, what would we eat? Mainly. We would eat fish, right? What else? Huh? Vegetables, sure.
Venison.
Venison. Let's just say meat. It could be turkeys, it could be squirrels, it could be rabbits, it could be whatever was around there. Yeah. Okay? So, fruit? Sure. There was wild fruit. Vegetables? Nuts? Seeds? Sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, seeds. Okay. Occasionally they would see eggs. Right? We would find eggs. So meat, fish, and eggs, fruit, vegetables, nuts and seeds. That was a diet. What's the only category here that could nourish you if you didn't eat anything else?
Meat.
Meat. That's right. Meat has all the vitamins, minerals, fats, amino acids. Those are the 4 categories of things we need, plus water and calories. Vitamins, minerals, fats, amino acids. Amino acids make protein, fats are part of the structural tissue of each of our cells, our brains, our hormones, vitamins and minerals. The only sole food source of these things is meat. Maybe fish too, but that category. There was a period of about almost a million years where when anthropologists or archaeologists found human feces remains in areas where people lived, where there was no vegetable matter at all in their feces, where they were living like Eskimos do today, on simply animal products. There was a lot of ice ages between 2,500,000 years ago and now, where it was very cold, there was very little vegetation, or it was very limited, and people just basically ate animals. Now this period extends to about 8,000 years ago, which is Neolithic period. So Paleo's old, Neo's new. About 8,000 years ago, somewhere 5,000 BC, somewhere in there. Where these people then became sedentary, and they became farmers, and if you look at the books, they call it the agricultural revolution. Because at that point, they started to grow grains, they would domesticate their animals, get milk products, so there was various yogurts or cheeses or milks or that sorts of thing. Okay, about 8,000 years ago. Now, that's a long time. 2,492,000 years, roughly. This is what people did. This is what they ate. And this is what the genetic material in human beings was. That was the things that made the bodies, that made the babies, that healed the injuries, that grew people up. Now, can you imagine if the body, for all this time, was using this for fuel and for food? It would take a while. Like, this is only a few hundred generations. This is thousands of generations. So if you look at the skulls and the material, the body material, and you do DNA analysis, like, you know, the Human Genome Project just a few years ago, where you could map the DNA and you could actually follow, you know, like where you came from ancestrally. And when they mapped the DNA from these fossils and they compared it to the DNA of people now, how close do you think it is? Is it really not very close? Because holy smokes, these were, you know, hunched over cavemen. Ugga, ugga, you know? Or is it close? It's really close. It's 99.96% the same. Now, what happens to a jet airplane, like a super jet Ferrari, Maserati airplane, whose fuel and is designed to be a special high-octane specific thing, and you put 87 grade, whatever you call it, octane gas into it. It doesn't perform. It sludges. So what happens if for 2,493,000 years the food was mainly meat with some of this stuff thrown in, and now you're going to feed it grains and dairy and beans and packaged foods and God knows what, all the stuff that they're doing to food these days. The bodies go to crap. And that's what's happening. Okay? Why is there so much problem with bodies? Because the food that was designed, that these bodies have grown through generation after generation after generation, it's not coming in. And someone decides, well, I should be a vegetarian, or I should be a frugivore, or I should be, I should eat just brown rice and sea vegetables. For most people, simply on a purely physical level, it just doesn't work. And so we see autoimmune disease, arthritis, and lupus, and bowel problems out the kazoo. You know that there's 20-something million prescriptions a month of antacid medications prescribed in this country? Or now you don't have to prescribe it anymore, it's over the counter. Zantac and Tagamet and Nexium. These foods don't belong. We aren't cows. We aren't horses. We don't have 4 stomachs to get grain all the way broken down and the cellulose all the way broken down so that we can actually make the right amino acids out of it. We don't. And so what happens is that these foods are very inflammatory. How many people now are wheat intolerant? Millions. I mean tens of millions. And most people, no other species eats dairy after nursing is completed. No, none, except humans. And for a lot of people, dairy is a problem. Whey protein, casein, the 2 proteins that are in milk, they're a problem for people. And when you look with a microscope at the intestine, at someone eating these foods, it gets inflamed. And what happens when the intestine gets inflamed? Your small intestine has a surface area of about 2 tennis courts. It's a huge surface area. And the main job of the intestine is to keep bad stuff in so that it can come out through the stool and not let it in. When you put things that cause inflammation in your stomach and then in your small intestine, and it causes inflammation or irritation, that little membrane gets injured and it leaks. And when it leaks, proteins come through into the body. And our immune system is about 70% around our small intestine for that very reason. To protect us from stuff coming in that shouldn't get in. And that immune system sees those foreign proteins coming in and it says we are being invaded by foreign bad guys. And we have to stop it. And they make antibodies, these are anti-proteins against those things. And when those things come through and the antibodies get made, then sometimes those conglomerates get stuck in joints, or they get stuck in thyroids, or they attack thyroids, or they attack pancreases, or they attack bowels. So what's IBS? What's MS? What's lupus? What's rheumatoid arthritis? It's your own immune system attacking your body. Why? Because foreign proteins came in, and the immune system doesn't know the difference between a protein that looks like your colon, or your small intestine, or your thyroid, and it's attacking you too. Because it looks close enough and it's trying to protect you. And what does a modern day doctor do? I just saw this, I did a podcast last night on a sports show. And one of the people called in with a question. My 6-year-old child has rheumatoid arthritis. And I want to see, he's starting to get a little bit chubby, and I want to get in some exercise. And he's on Remicade. Now Remicade is one of these medicines that you hear on TV where they say, consult your doctor if you're taking Remicade because it can kill you, it can maim you, it can murder you, it can kill you again, and if you have TB, don't take it, and if you have any infection, don't take it, and then it'll kill you again, and it'll kill you again. It basically dismantles your immune system so that you can't fight infection, you can't fight cancer, and you might as well just stick a knife in your heart. And that's the modern day treatment for rheumatoid arthritis in serious cases. And this kid was on Remicade. And I said, gee whiz, we have had patient after patient after patient. When we take them off these foods, and we heal up their intestines so they don't leak anymore. Within 6 to 8 months, their rheumatoid factor goes negative, their ANA goes negative, the antibodies that they're making go negative. I had one just now with an autoimmune thyroiditis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, where the body is making attack particles to the person's thyroid. And it's attacking her thyroid so much that her thyroid's very inflamed. And she has what's called Graves' disease, where her thyroid levels were like storming. They were like really high. Had to actually put her on a medicine to calm it down, because when the thyroid's overacting, it's like having like 50 cups of coffee all day long. And their heart beats fast, and they can't sleep, and they sweat, and they burn food off. And we've had no patients that we weren't able to correct with this without cutting their thyroids out or dosing with radioactive iodine to kill their thyroid. But you got to heal their gut. You got to stop those particles from coming in. And it was very interesting today, because she said, I said, "How are you doing?" She says, I think I'm doing a little bit better. How does the lab look? And her anti-thyroid antibody was at 360 when she came in. And after just a couple months on the diet, on some supplements, on a couple of other things, an autoimmune treatment that we do, her antibody level had gone from, I think, 356 to under 20. It was remarkable. The immune system just turned it off because it wasn't being stimulated anymore by, a lot of it was the food, the wrong foods. And she will heal. Her thyroid will come down, all her swelling and her soreness will come down, she will get better. Okay? Now, Laura Cordain, the guy who wrote the original Paleo book, did a study on what happens to people who have acne, children, teenagers, if they go on this diet alone. And he found that over 90% of them, within 6 months, their acne went away. Okay? So they went off sugar, they went off grains, they went off processed foods. They ate basically food in its natural form. So what I tell people, if it comes in a box or a package and it's got any other ingredient in it, you don't eat it. Because it's all chemicalized food. There's no doubt what a chicken leg looks like, or what a piece of fish looks like, or what broccoli or a peach looks like. That's the real food. And then you should buy it organically, because then it's not so full of pesticides. And you should avoid the GMO forms of it as much as you can, because they've already been messed up too. And what you'll find in not very long, a month or 2 or 3, there's somebody scratching their nose, yes?
What do you mean
GMO, genetically modified foods. You know, like almost all the soy, almost all the corn, almost all the wheat. They fiddle with the genetics of the seed. So it's a seed that's got it's got some fish in the almonds in the seed, and it might have some tomato extract in it, and it's got some other things in it. It's got a bacteria attached to it, so that when you grow that, say, corn plant, the reason they do GMO corn is because that corn plant, because of the genetics of it, is resistant to pesticides. You can spray Roundup on it all day and it won't die. Whereas a real corn plant will die. So what's happened is that they've taken over the seed supplies, these big chemical companies, and they've got the seeds are all modified. So when it comes into the body, it doesn't look like the 2.5 million years of the food that the body's used to, and it just doesn't work. So probably the best thing you can do if your health isn't optimized is do this. As an experiment, I tell people, do it 3 months. Try it out. See how you feel. You'll see your pants will get looser, your energy will be better, your sleep will be better. Most of your chronic constipation and your GERD and all this other stuff, your bloating and gas and joint pain, it will go away. It will go away because your intestines now will de-inflame. And when we do it in the clinic, we look for other things that also cause inflammation. Sometimes people have parasites in their gut, or they have bad bacteria in their gut, or they have funguses. You know, there's other reasons for leaky gut. But you can't do it without getting the food fixed. Now, The other thing about this, which is very interesting, what is the largest organ in our body? What?
Liver.
Somebody said liver.
Skin.
Skin, good. I haven't got the answer yet.
Your brain.
Your brain, okay. All good answers. What's the largest organ in our body? What? Stomach. Somebody said intestines. Huh? Colon, not quite. You know the term microbiome? New word. It's the bugs that live inside of us that are our biggest organ. Okay? It's the flora in your colon. It's the bacteria and yeasts that live in your colon. Now they're small, but if you counted them all up, a human body has about 50 or 60 trillion cells. So, you know, we go from 1 sperm, 1 egg to 60 trillion cells. That's about the count, somewhere in that neighborhood. The number of bacteria in your colon is probably 10 times more than that. The amount of DNA and genetic material in your colon is thousands of times more than all these cells in our body. And the other way to look at this is, see, death begins in the colon. Constipation's man's worst disease. You know, go back to any early naturopaths or natural hygienists or any of these guys. All the focus was on the colon. Because they knew that if you didn't have a healthy colon, you wouldn't be healthy. And you would have all manner of problems. Really, the reason you eat in a large measure is, yes, you need amino acids and vitamins and minerals and fats to nourish your own body, but you also need those things to nourish this microbiome, this huge amount of bacteria that lives in your colon, because they make a lot of stuff that we need. You know, you look on the list of B vitamins, B1, B2, B3. B4 got skipped. B5, B6, what's B7, B8, B9, B10, B11, oh, B12. Those things are made by colonic bacteria which nurture us. Now, if you eat food that they don't like, or that nourish the bad members in that group, then they have their own products and their own waste products. And those waste products are going to you, and they make you sick. And they can give you anything from brain fog, to sore joints, to can't sleep, to psychosis. 95% of the neurohormones in the body, dopamine, serotonin, you know, GABA, where's it made? You know, you think of it as the central organ in the body is the brain. The central controlling area in the body is the brain. It isn't true. It's the intestines. All those things, 95% of them are made here. The brain is a relay point. But the action's right here. And if what you feed these guys is sugar and wheat and grains and processed foods, then you nurture badder guys and less gooder guys. And those badder guys make bad stuff. And they might not, you know, you measure someone, we measure somebody's urine level for serotonin, and it's really low. So the person says, well, my brain's not making serotonin. No, your gut's not making serotonin. And we have to fix your gut so that it will make serotonin, so that then you can feel good in your brain. And GABA, and DOPA. Okay? So, if you consider this largest organ in the body, it gets nurtured. What do people do if they have lots of yeast growing in them? The doctor says what? Go off carbs. Right? Because yeast likes carbs. And if you're eating a lot of breads and a lot of fruit and sugars or things like that, it's difficult to handle yeast because the yeast likes that stuff. And when you're feeding them every day all that stuff, well, they just grow. And the yeast makes a lot of toxic products. We measure people's blood, urine levels all the time where we for is the guy have a lot of toxic products from yeast. These are toxic chemicals that yeast makes that just oozes through the intestine, and then it gets in the body, and then the person feels, you know, bad. Yeast can make alcohols. You can feel drunk. Some of these people feel drunk because the yeast makes alcohol. So if you feed this organ, this biggest organ, its natural foods, which are these, it will then be friendly to you. And it will make the things that you need made. And you'll have a flat stomach, and you won't be gassy, and you won't have GERD, and your brain will have energy, and you will have clarity, and you will, all the things, you know, all the things that hardly anybody says would think that it was related to this, it's actually related to that. So virtually every patient I see, when I do my physical examination on them, and a special kind of a biofeedback examination, where I'm able to look at their nervous system. You know, in the body's like a computer. It's got an operating system in it, and that operating system is just like a computer's operating system. So if you got an Apple, you've got i10 or whatever it's called. What do you call it? iOS, okay? And if you've got a Microsoft, then you've got a Windows 8, okay? Well, we've got our own version of that, and our own version of it is called Autonomic Nervous System. So you got 60 trillion cells, they all have to be more or less on the same page, right? Like when you walk outside and it's really hot outside, millions of things have to happen so that you don't die. You know what I mean? Like salt balance and sugar and eyes dilate and heart speeds up and you start to perspire and you know, stuff you never have to think about because the operating system says, okay, it's hot outside. Okay, hold on to all the salt. Start to sweat. Turn up the heartbeat. Stop digestion. Like a million reactions per cell per second. And you could never keep track of this in your head. It's all automatic. It's all automatic. This happens, that happens. This happens, does this. Okay? So you have this operating system, and the operating system, one part of it says do more. This is the stress part. It's fight or flight. So Tiger runs in the room here. What are you going to do? Would you even have to think? It'll be automatic. You run out the door, you attack the tiger, your heart would go out. If you had food in your stomach, it would all stop digesting. All the blood would go to your muscles. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is rest, digest. If you fill your stomach up and your body's doing fight or flight, then there's problems. Stomach ache. Okay? So this operating system has to work, has to be in control. And when it's in control, the person has health. And when it's not in control, when it's doing things that it shouldn't be doing, then the person doesn't have health. What's high blood pressure? What's high cholesterol? What's cold hands? What's cold feet? It's an operating system's messed up. Not working right. So the exam that we do at LifeWorks, part of the physical exam is to see what is this thing got going on. You know, what is this thing trying to regulate against? Is it a bad gut? Is it bad teeth? Is it malnutrition? You know, what is it like it's doing all it can to keep you alive against something. And that something is either something that's in you that shouldn't be. It might be a parasite or a virus or a heavy metal or bunches of them. Or it might be that you don't have enough magnesium or zinc or amino acids or something else. And it's trying to keep the ship going with, you know, 3 holes in the bow and the rudder's broken. And you know, you look at a kid's body, how flexible it is, how easy it is to adapt. It's because this stuff is working. And as you get older, what happens is it just closes down, until now, you know, if I get 15 minutes less sleep, my throat's going to be scratchy, and I'm going to be ornery all day. You know, where it's like, The littlest thing can't even be coped with. So we have to find that out, because in each person it's different. And when you look at high-level athletes or people who have taken very good care of themselves, you find that their nervous system is working. It's regulated. It's happening. And the end result of a nervous system that's working is performance. It's your ability to perform work or your duties or whatever you do with no pain and plenty of energy. And if you don't have that, then it's not working. And food plays a big role in this, and so does other things. So when we check that, 98% of the time on a new person who comes in, I don't care what their complaint is, what's the most disturbed area of their body? Their gut. And so we virtually always start with a couple-month program to rehab their gut. And oftentimes we'll do tests, we'll do blood tests and stool tests to help us look and see what's in there, so that we can, if we need to reduce yeast levels or handle parasites or improve digestive enzymes or give material so that the leaks get sealed up, that we do that as part of it. And that we put the right food in there so that then from now on the gut's not getting inflamed by bad foods. And within a month, almost every person comes back in and says, I'm actually feeling better. My joints feel better, my energy's better, my fatigue isn't as bad, I actually feel better. And what do? We just got this kind of back on the track. And then with time, it just does get better. And then we might find another thing. It might be that they have an adrenal weakness, or they have a liver weakness, or, as we then fine-tune, the person's already on their way back to health and they feel it. And what does that equal? Well, less or no pain and more energy. Because the two things that bring people to doctor's offices are no energy and pain. And a pharmaceutical will never cure you of low energy or pain, ever. It may make you feel better temporarily, but it will never address the underlying problem with whatever it is. And so you can take, Zantac or Nexium or Pepsid, and you won't have for a while any stomach trouble. But we all know that those drugs cause stomach cancer. And when you don't have acid in your stomach, every time you eat a taco somewhere or some vegetable somewhere that has bacteria on it and probably some yeast and probably some parasites, well, your first level of defense in your body, which is that stomach acid, which is supposed to kill those little critters before they get into where all the good stuff is for them. Like in your intestines, where it's nice and warm and dark, and it's a perfect incubator, and there's food coming through there all the time, where they can grow and thrive. Your number one level of defense was just taken out. And so you're going to be full of critters. And those critters now aren't your friends, because they make stuff that isn't good for you. And they eat stuff that should be going into you. So we find oodles of parasites and bad bacteria in people. So that's the sort of, to restore health, you actually have to restore healthy habits for health. And if you do, it ends up being pretty simple once you get the train fixed. You have to eat the right food, you have to sleep, you have to manage your stress, you have to get some sunshine, and you have to take enough supplements because the food isn't as good as it used to be to keep you good. And if you do, then you can do stuff and you can live longer, and life's fun when you thought you peaked at 40, but now you're 65 and you're having just as much or more fun now as you were then. That's fun. And you look at people who think that they're 35 and their life is over and they feel terrible. And most of it is really due to just their own health habits. And sometimes it gets so crazy. I had a lady this week. She comes into my office with lung cancer. And she doesn't want any chemical treatments. She's not going to do chemotherapy. I'm coming to you because I want to do it naturally. Okay? And she's got a tennis ball sized tumor in her lung. Little skinny thing, not very big. I said, okay, I can help you. I said, you don't by any chance smoke, do you? I sure do. I can't help you. I can't help you. If you can't stop smoking, I can't. I learned this from another gal with breast cancer. And she had breast cancer, and she kept smoking. And I told her the first day, I don't think this is going to work. If you don't stop smoking, I don't think this is going to work. I'm going to do the program anyway. Okay, do the program. But I already told you up front. And after 2.5 months of the program, we retest. We're not where we want to be. You're still smoking, right? Yeah. Trying. No. So I said to her husband, you know what they do in Singapore? If you steal, chop your hand off. So this is like that. It's like, okay, one more cigarette. I'm going to chop your hand off. Are you in or not? So these things aren't easy. We live in an environment, and yours might not be, might not be cigarette. It might be that you like bonbons or something. It doesn't matter. This isn't easy. It isn't all that easy. And you don't have to be perfect. Okay? In the Paleo book, he said if you're 85% perfect, you can be okay. So you don't have to be perfect. You have to be perfect until you're well. Once you're well, you can see, what can you tolerate? And you find out really quick, because when you've been clean for a while and then you stray, you find out, oh God, I got stomach aches now, or my rash came back, or, whatever you're thinking. Okay. So good. So that's the overview of paleo diet. Now, when we started it was hard, because we didn't know what to do. Now, if you go on the internet and you search paleo cookbooks, paleo meals, paleo menus, there are just thousands and thousands of free recipes, meal plans, where it's really very easy. And it's the kind of diet where you can go almost anywhere and eat. You can almost always go to a restaurant and get salad greens and olive oil and a piece of broiled meat or fish and be okay. And I carry nuts in my car, and you learn to sort of carry stuff around so that when you get hungry and you see the McDonald's over there, that you don't drive in there and eat there, because it's going to be tempting. And we have a book at home called Paleo Comfort Foods, and by golly, there's some good desserts in there, and they're all paleo. And my wife makes some mean paleo bread. It's made out of almond flour and coconut flour and a bunch of other things. And if you haven't had bread in a long time, it sure tastes good with some nut butter on it, or some avocado spread on it. Okay, so your tastes change and you adapt. But I recommend that you give it a 3-month trial and just see how your body handles it. The first 10 days are tough, so what we tell people is, first thing on the list, because we have a handout on this of what to do, is clean out your pantry. No one has willpower in the middle of the night when they wake up and they're sure that if they don't get a piece of pizza, they're going to die by morning. Or whatever your thing is, ice cream, doesn't matter. And if it isn't there, but there is an apple sitting in the bowl, or there's some sliced roast beef in the refrigerator, you might just satisfy yourself with that and make it till morning when you come back to your senses and you thank your lucky stars that you did one more day. And then after not too long, usually a week or 10 days, it's over. Now, I want to tell you a story. Mary Pat does our diet counseling in the office. And she's been around diets for a lot of years and had trouble with food, and she does great with it now. But we had a guy come in not too long ago, maybe 3 months ago. He came in to me, and he's heavy, and he felt bad, and he's got high blood pressure. His blood sugar's running in the high, like between 180 and 230, and he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't want to take insulin. He didn't feel good. He was on oral medicines for diabetes. It wasn't working. What can I do? And he said, the last thing I just tried is that my son is a raw vegan, and I'm doing the raw vegan thing now. And his blood sugar's sitting at 240, and he feels exhausted all the time. And he tries to ride his bike, and he can't ride his bike, and he's starving all the time. He's like, you know, I'm just never satisfied. So he came in to see me, and I said, look, just try this, will you? You just try this diet, okay? He said, my son will kill me. Just try it. Try it for a few months. But my cholesterol's high. You're going to give me this meat and this fat. I already had a heart attack. I'm going to have another heart attack. I got 3 stents in there. You're going to kill me. And so he started. And she's been coaching him along. His blood sugar is now like it was 97 today. He hasn't seen 97 in probably 10 or 15 years. He's not starving anymore. His pain, he's had another notch on his belt loop. Okay? He's riding his bike 10 miles. He feels incredible. And best of all, he doesn't even feel guilty anymore. He's not worried about all the baloney that the doctors have filled him with about, oh, you know, pyramid, and eat this, and it's just like all lies. And so he's a really typical example of a guy who actually just was willing to take the advice and do it. And we just never see it fail. If you'll do it, we just never see it fail. So I recommend it to you. So let me take some questions, and I think you're the first one.
What do you do for neuropathy?
Well, it just depends. See, it's never a one-for-one. But whatever you got, what do we do with cancer patients? We put them on a paleo type diet, but another talk, another diet. It's more what we call ketogenic. So it's similar foods, but we drop out the fruit and we don't give them any carbs. But with a paleo diet, you will get your metabolism, your acid-base balance in line, which allows everything else to work better. You know, I often have patients, well, you're eating all these acidic foods. I'm eating animal protein 3 times a day. I said, oh, let's check it. And I have some pH strips in my drawer. Take out the pH strip. Okay, what is it? It's 7. I'm alkaline. I'm alkaline. My metabolism is alkaline on this diet. And yours will be too. It'll be in range. 6.5 to 7 of a first morning saliva is about what it should be. And what this does is it provides the food and the sort of environment in your body so that your cells can do what they're supposed to do. Where you're getting enough protein and enough essential fats and enough calories and vitamins and minerals so that all of your things can normalize. So if you have a neuropathy, it's the best thing for your neuropathy. If you have coronary artery disease, it's the best thing for your coronary artery disease. Okay? Because the cells will do their best in that with that food fed to them. Because that's what they grew up on. And their mothers and their grandmothers and their, 3,000 generations back. It could have been here that we were in jungles and there was no animals and all you could eat was pineapples. And the evolution might have been that if people were sitting here eating meat and they weren't eating pineapples, that they'd be sick. It just turns out that it was this way instead. Yeah?
Well, how come people didn't live as long?
Well, a million other reasons, mostly public health.
What was the question?
But why did people live as long? Yeah, I mean, there was lion tigers, and there was, prenatal birth was high, and, there was no any of that stuff. So it's, the good part of vegetarian foods is that vegetables are good foods. Fruits and vegetables are good foods. And the problem with most people who eat a regular American diet, for the Department of Agriculture, which provides the authorization for school meals, school lunch programs? You know what the definition, what qualifies as a full complement of vegetables in a meal are for a school lunch? The two vegetables, French fries and ketchup. Okay, so those are bad foods, and they aren't good for anybody. And if your diet is hamburgers and French fries and ketchup, well, you're going to be as sick as the guy who's just eating leaves all day. So we need good food of the right ones, and then you will live better, and you will be less likely to get the degenerative diseases that occur when you're not eating those foods.
Can certain foods help you if you have migraines?
Absolutely. And sometimes it's even these foods. So if I try someone who comes in with headaches, and I try, we try paleo diet, and we're still getting triggers, there's a very nice allergy panel for $650, and I'll order the allergy panel because it'll screen 200 foods and spices where we can see, oh, you know what? Beef is bad. Beef right now you can't take, or celery you can't take. Might be a list of foods where you've had a leaky gut so long that you now are sensitive to all that stuff. Now in 6 months you'll be able to do it, but we can't put them in now because they trigger reactions. Wait a minute.
Hey buddy, I did paleo for like 2 days once, and I felt like I was gonna die. I felt like I was gonna faint and die, right? So I ran for bread, and then I started to feel better again.
Yes, yes.
So why do you? I mean, is it normal to just feel that bad? And then by me not eating grains, can I really just pass out from not eating grains? I mean, it sounds silly, but it's how I felt.
No, there are substances in grains that on each cell there are receptors. There's little docking stations, and those docking stations are, that's why narcotics work. That's why Valium works, because they hit on those docking stations. They're endorphin receptors. They're opiate receptors. There are opiate-like compounds in grains and in dairy products. And that's why I said, if you don't clean out your house, you might wake up in the middle of the night and you feel like you're going to die if you don't have a chocolate brownie or a piece of bread or something. It's addiction. It's just chemical addiction. And what's going on now, the cigarette companies did it with cigarettes. They put chemicals in there which were addictive, which made people addicts. Subterfuge, just underneath, well, the food companies do it too. Try to eat one Dorito. You can't. You'll eat the whole bag. I've done it. They put addictive chemicals in there, and they experiment with chemical triggers to get rats to and then they try it in humans. That's why if you avoid as much as you can chemicalized foods, you won't be susceptible to them. And when you taste them, they'll taste like, oh, geez, that's chemicals. That's no good. Go off sugar for 2 weeks and then put a sugar cube in your mouth. It'll burn your mouth. Okay? So, that's why there's a, usually week, 10 days, it'll quit.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Is there a recommended growing macronutrients percentage-wise breakdown on that, or?
I usually leave it open. Oh, is there a breakdown on macronutrients for how much protein, how much carbs, how much fat? And I don't usually do it that way. I think eat some animal protein 3 times a day, eat lots of vegetables. Depending on what your weight is doing and what your activity levels, you may be able to handle a lot of fruit. You may not be able to handle a lot of fruit. I like to keep people's blood sugar lowish. Okay? And some people can tolerate fruit if they're, when I'm exercising a lot, I need some extra carbohydrates. But I sort of like that. Okay? Yeah.
Based on what you were just saying before that answer to that question, isn't that the whole reason to have whole grain instead of processed grain? What you're saying is very true about processed grain. It's not true about whole grain.
It is true. It is true. Whole grains are probably better. You know, it's probably cigarettes or probably cigars are better than cigarettes. Because you probably won't inhale quite as much. But whole grains are irritative to most people's intestine. And they just aren't needed. And it isn't so much that, it's just that they weren't part of the palate. And does that not mean they don't taste good, or you have better bowel movements with them, or they're satisfying, or all this other stuff? It doesn't mean that at all. So you're an experiment of what? You know, every person in here, your biochemistry is completely unique to you. It's as unique to you as that you look different than you do. Okay? So while we have a lot of similarities, we're all very unique. And so this is sort of a starting place. Some people are going to do okay with legumes. Some people are going to do okay with some other foods. But like I said, if you do it sort of this way, get your baseline, get feeling good, then you can see what's going to be the right mix for you. I don't see this as a rigid of like, ugh. But get the basis there so that you feel better than you ever have. And then you can see it when you have something, it's like, oh, no, that's not right. And you go off. Yeah?
What are you seeing with your patients with their cholesterol levels on the paleo diet?
I could not care less about their cholesterol level. All I do with cholesterol is I make sure they go off their statin drugs. I cannot think of one reason why anyone would ever take a statin or give anyone a statin. They're poisons. They don't make you live longer. You have to treat 100 people with statins to get any benefit by one person. So I never use statins. I don't care about what your cholesterol is. Cholesterol is your body's defense against oxidative stress. And so so I want to find out what's the cause of the oxidative stress. Is it all the bad bugs in your gut? Is it heavy metals? Is it your root canal teeth? Is it your lack of vitamin D or vitamin C or zinc or selenium? And what happens is the cholesterol will go to a nice level of what it should be for you, and you'll have very little of the oxidized cholesterol, the bad LDL, and you'll be fine. And yours might be 350, it might be 250, I don't even care. Doesn't matter. It's all a hype. It's a way to sell drugs. That's all.
What about other heart medications? Digoxin and
each person, you know, we never just say stop. I do on statins because I don't want a dangerous situation. Again, you're on the medication because there's been a problem. It could have been a life-threatening problem. And what we have to find out is what is the underlying, what's going on. How can we get you so your physiology no longer is dependent or needs that drug anymore? And for most problems, we can do that, where the medications aren't anymore and the person's doing well on food and water and supplements. Okay? I've got the X sign. So thank you for your attention. I hope this was interesting for you.
Announce a special and camera, and you have a question still.
What?
If they want to see you, there's questions.
Oh yeah, I'll be here for a while after. If you want to make an appointment to come see us, go see Tamara.
Special.
Thanks for sharing your evening with me.
Thank you.